At 85, I finally understand why my children stopped calling. I'm 85 years old.
And most mornings I wake up before the sun, not because I need to, but because my body doesn't remember how to sleep the way it used to. The house is quiet in a way that feels permanent now. No footsteps, no doors opening, no phone ringing. I'm not telling this because I need forgiveness. I'm past needing that. I'm telling it because time is thinned out in front of me, and there isn't much left to hold things back. Some truths only come when there's nowhere left to run from them. I sit at the small kitchen table with my coffee going cold, and I think about how long it's been since I heard my children's voices without having to imagine them. Years. Now. Not weeks. Not months. Years. At first, I told myself they were busy. That's what parents do. We make excuses that feel kind. We tell ourselves the story that hurts the least. But when the phone stays silent long enough, the story wears thin. At my age, you start counting differently. You don't count years ahead. You count what's already gone. Friends first, then routines, then whole chapters of life you assumed would always be there, waiting for you to return. I know I don't have much time left. That's not fear talking. It's just fact. And when you know that, you stop polishing things. You stop pretending. So this is me, not pretending anymore. When I was younger, I thought being a good father meant being reliable, showing up to work, paying bills on time, keeping the lights on. I thought love was built from responsibility, stacked carefully like bricks, one duty on top of another. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't violent. I didn't disappear. I came home every night. I sat at the table. I asked about school. I believed that was enough. In my 20s and 30s, life felt like a narrow hallway. You move forward because that's the only direction available. I worked long hours, not because anyone forced me to, but because it felt right, necessary, respectable. I wore being tired like a badge. I believed sacrifice was something you made, quietly, without asking to be seen. I thought my children would understand later. Later is a dangerous word. It sounds responsible. It sounds patient. It hides what it takes from you. My days followed a rhythm. Alarm clock, coffee, drive to work, paperwork, meetings that blurred together, drive home dinner, news on the television, bed on weekends. I told myself I was resting for the family. Sometimes I was just tired. Sometimes I just wanted silence. My kids were noisy in the way kids are. Questions, stories, half-finished thoughts. They wanted to show me things. Drawings, games, jokes that didn't quite land. I listened, but not all the way. My body was there. My mind was still at work, solving problems that didn't remember me afterward. I told myself I'd have more energy when they were older, that when things settled down, I'd really be present. I didn't see that things don't settle. They just move on. There were moments I still remember clearly. A school play I arrived late to. Standing in the back, trying not to make noise, telling myself it was better than not coming at all. A birthday dinner I missed because a project ran long. I brought home a gift the next day. I remember the smile, polite and small. Conversations that started with Dad, "Can I tell you something?" and ended with me glancing at the clock. I wasn't choosing work over them on purpose. I was choosing what felt urgent over what felt patient. I didn't know patience could expire. As they grew older, they needed less from me in obvious ways. That felt like relief at the time. Fewer school events, fewer rides, fewer questions. I mistook that for independence. I didn't see it as distance forming. Teenagers don't announce when they start pulling away. They just stop knocking on your door. They stop asking. They learn who listens and who doesn't. I stayed the same. Steady, reliable, predictable. I thought that was love. When they moved out, the house got quieter. I told myself that was success. That meant I'd done my job. We spoke on holidays, birthdays, short calls, surface updates. I didn't ask deep questions. I didn't want to pry. I thought giving space was respectful. Years passed that way. Calm, manageable, empty, but not loudly so. Their lives grew fuller without me noticing. Jobs, partners, children of their own. I learned things secondhand, through brief mentions, through silence. I told myself they'd come back around, that adult children always do, that time works in circles. But time doesn't circle. It moves forward and leaves things behind without asking permission. I remember the first time one of them didn't return my call. Just once, I shrugged it off. The second time, I noticed. By the fifth or sixth, I stopped dialing as often. Not out of pride. Out of a quiet embarrassment I didn't know how to name. I didn't think of myself as a lonely man. I had my routines, my chair, my shows, my habits. Loneliness doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just settles in like dust. I look back now and see that nothing broke all at once. No big fight, no final argument, no slammed doors. Just absence, growing slowly, like a language we stopped sharing. At 85, you start replaying scenes you thought were finished. You hear tones you missed. You notice pauses you talked through. I can see now that my children didn't stop calling suddenly. They stopped feeling called to. And that realization didn't come quickly. It came the way old age does, quietly, without ceremony. This is only the beginning of what I've come to understand. And it took me most of my life to get even this far. At 85, I finally understand why my children stopped calling part 2. Some understandings arrive late, but not dramatically. There's no thunder to mark them. They come while you're folding laundry alone, while you're washing a mug that's been chipped for years, while you're sitting in a chair that remembers your shape better than any person does now. I started noticing how carefully I told my own story, how gentle I was with myself, how often I used words like busy and tired and responsible to smooth over things that were rough underneath. When you're young, you think intention matters most. You think wanting to be good is the same as being good. It takes a long time to learn that impact has its own weight. I didn't set out to be distant. I didn't plan to become a voice my children associate with obligation instead of comfort. But plans aren't required for outcomes. Sometimes all you need is consistency in the wrong direction. I remember when my wife first mentioned it. She said, "They don't talk to you the way they used to." I brushed it off. Said kids change. Said dad was normal. Said I'd done nothing wrong. She didn't argue. She just nodded. That should have told me something. She was always better at noticing what wasn't said. She'd sit with them longer. Ask questions that didn't have answers. She remembered. Details. Names of friends. Small worries. I thought she was just more sentimental. When she got sick, everything slowed down. Hospital rooms have a way of stripping things bare. No distractions, no productivity to hide behind. The kids came then, sat by her bed, held her hand. They talked to her in voices I hadn't heard in years. Soft, open, unguarded. I was there, too, standing nearby. Helpful, practical. Even then, I didn't fully see it. I thought grief would bring us closer. That shared loss would repair what time had thinned. After she died, the house became unbearably quiet. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that echoes. For a while, the kids called more often. Checked in, asked if I was eating, if I needed anything. I answered honestly. I was fine. Admitted I've learned that saying I'm fine is a way of closing a door without slamming it. As months passed, the calls spaced out. Then holidays came and went. Then another year. I told myself I didn't want to be a burden. I told myself they had their own lives. Those thoughts felt noble. They also kept me alone. One afternoon, I tried to remember the last real conversation I'd had with each of them. Not updates. Not logistics. A real conversation. I couldn't. That realization sat heavy. Heavier than grief, in some ways. Because grief implies something ended. This felt like something that never quite existed the way I thought it had. I started replaying scenes from decades ago. Not the big moments, the ordinary ones. Me reading the paper while they talked. Me half listening, me assuming there would be another chance to engage fully. I see now that presence isn't something you can save up. You can't tell someone you loved them deeply if you rarely showed curiosity about who they were becoming. Children notice where your attention goes, even when they pretend not to. I don't think my children would say I was a bad father. I think that's what hurts the most. I was adequate, dependable, safe, but I wasn't warm in the way that lingers. There's a difference between being respected and being missed. I used to think being needed was the goal, but being needed ends. Being wanted is quieter, and it requires something different from you. It requires showing up without a task. I never learned how to do that until there was no one left asking. Now days stretch. I mark time by medications and weather changes. Sometimes I go a whole week without speaking out loud to anyone. I've written letters I never sent, drafted messages I erased. Each time, I wonder what right I have to reopen doors I helped close. I don't blame them. That's important to say. Blame would be easier, cleaner. This is about cause, not fault. I gave my children a version of myself that was always slightly unavailable. Eventually, they adjusted. Children are good at adapting. That's how they survive. By the time I noticed the distance, it had become familiar to them. Normal. You can't ask someone to miss what they learned to live without. That's a hard truth to carry at the end of a life. If you're listening to this and you're younger than me, I won't tell you what to do. I don't believe in that anymore. I'll just tell you what I wish I had understood. That listening counts more than providing. That attention is remembered longer than effort. That love needs witnesses. I thought I was building something solid by being steady. I didn't realize I was also building walls. I don't know if my children will ever call again. I hope they do. But hope at this age is quieter, too. It doesn't demand. If this meant something to you, you don't have to say anything. You don't owe me that. Just know that silence teaches lessons even when we don't mean it to. I'm still here, still remembering, still learning, even now. And I sit with what's left, trying to make peace with the man I was and the time I thought I had.